Further amendments? Mr. Womack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will read, please.
An amendment offered by Mr. Womack. At the end of Title VII, before the Section 759, add the following new section. Section 7, the provisions...
Clerk,
Let her read. Let her read.
okay, please read.
It's brief.
The provisions of Section 202 and 320 of H.R. 238, 115th Congress, the Commodity End User Relief Act, as passed by the House of Representatives on January 12, 2017, are hereby enacted into law.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the clerk has just emphasized, and I purposely let her read the amendment, as you can see, it's very simple. It's one sentence, it's 5 lines, purely adding language to this bill that has already passed the House with bipartisan support via H.R. 238 at the beginning of this Congress back in January. And because it has already passed the House, it has garnered support from the House Ag Committee authorizing chairman as well. As the clerk read, notice there were 2 provisions cited in the amendment. The first of these, which incorporates Section 202, would codify a 2012 IG recommendation that the CFTC undertake a real, substantive, economic, factor-driven cost-benefit analysis rather than a theoretical, legal one, as has been the accepted practice. I think most people in this room would agree that such an analysis should be also based on the recommendations from economists, not just lawyers. The second provision of the amendment would exempt inter-affiliate swaps from unnecessary scrutiny under Dodd-Frank. Now, to be clear, I'm not standing up today to relitigate Dodd-Frank. All businesses, and we have them in our districts everywhere, big and small, are required to manage risk. And they often do it by trading derivatives between their subsidiaries or affiliates. But understand that that risk, unlike external risk, that risk is contained and subject only to the internal corporate structure. These are not transactions that contribute to systemic risk, so we shouldn't be treating them like they do. So this very brief and simple amendment simply codifies it into law, and I urge a yes vote.
Womack. Mr. Adderholt.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to rise in support of the gentleman's amendment. It's a common sense amendment, reduces regulatory compliance costs for financial entities, while also requiring good government rulemaking on part of the CFTC. And so I would urge my colleagues to support the amendment.
Mr. Adderholt. Mr. Bishop.
Mr. Chairman, while I have no personal objection to the amendment, and I understand very well the intention. Thank you. While I have no personal objection to the amendment, and I understand very well the intention of the amendment, and I do personally support it, I do understand the fact that there is a reasonable disagreement with some of my colleagues on this amendment, and I just wanted to state that perhaps some of my colleagues may want to be heard on the issue, but I personally have no objection to it.
Mr. Bishop. Mr. Womack, do you care to close?
Yeah.
Any further discussion before I recognize Mr. Womack to close? Mr. Womack, just
Thank you, Mr.
disregard
Chairman.
what's happening up here. Thank you.
I'd like to remind you that all of us have already voted on these measures. As has been indicated by the ranking member, it had bipartisan support when passed on the floor, including a couple of members on our other friend's side of the aisle over here that were in favor of it. So I simply request a yes vote. Prepared to yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. The question is on the Womack amendment. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Further amendments, Ms. Lowy.
I have